friends, welcome to the world of Companies Act 2013. I, Professor Kunal Shah, on behalf of JK Shah Classes, is over here to present you all the revision lecture for Companies Act 2013. Yes, my dear friends, in this video, we are going to revise chapter number 3 of Companies Act 2013. That is prospectus and allotment of securities. This entire chapter is been given under chapter number 3 of Companies Act 2013, wherein the provision of this chapter is there under section number 23 up to section number 42. Section number 23 up to section number 42. This entire chapter is been divided into two parts. Part 1 is prospectus and allotment of securities, and part 2 it is private placement. Yes, my dear friends, whenever a company is in need of money, the company can raise the funds by issuing securities. When I say securities, it includes shares as well as debentures. So whenever a company is in need of money, the company can issue securities. That is, the company can issue shares or the company can issue debentures. Okay, if the company is going to issue securities to public at large, if the company is going to issue securities to public at large, then in that case the company needs to issue a prospectus, which is nothing but invitation to offer, which is nothing but invitation to offer. So if anyone says what is a prospectus, then in our plain English language, prospectus is nothing but an invitation to offer. Through this prospectus, the investors will start giving offers to the company. The company will receive application money. Only when the company accepts the offer from the investors, at that time the company will start allotting the securities to the investors. For example, there is a company over here called as XYZ Limited. If this company is in need of money and the company has decided to raise the funds by issuing securities to public at large, then in that case the company will first require to issue a prospectus, that is invitation to offer. Through that prospectus, the investors will start giving application money to the company. Over here, if the company accepts such application money, then the company will allot securities to the investors. See, on one side the company will receive the funds, and on another side the investor will get the securities of that company. So over here, let us begin our very first provision, that is section number 23 of Companies Act 2013. Section number 23 of Companies Act 2013 deals with issue of securities. Over here, the lawmaker says that whether you are a public company or whether you are a private company, whether you are a public company or whether you are a private company, both the companies are allowed to issue securities. Yes, irrespective of it, whether you are a public company or whether you are a private company, both the companies are allowed to issue securities. A public company can issue securities through three ways. There are three ways through which a public company can issue securities. The very first way through which a public company can issue securities, it is through a public offer. The company is going to issue its securities to public at large. The public at large is going to give the offer to the company. So if you are a public company, you can issue your securities through a public offer. If it is for the first time, then it is been considered as an initial public offer, that is IPO. However, whenever the company goes for the subsequent issues to public at large, it is called as further public offer, that is FPO, that is FPO. See, whether your company goes for IPO or whether your company goes for FPO, then in that case, the company is bound to follow the provisions given under section number 23 up to section number 41. The second way through which a public company can issue securities, the second way through which a public company can issue securities, it is through private placement. It is through private placement. Over here, the public company will privately place its securities, then the public company will receive the offers. Over here, the public company can accept it. The public company can accept such things from its investors. So see, a public company can issue securities, yes, either through a public offer, yes, or even through a private placement, If a company is going to issue securities through a private placement, then in that case, the provisions of section number 42 of Companies Act 2013 shall be followed. Yes, we are going to understand section number 42 at last in this video itself. A public company can also issue securities through right shares or bonus shares. Whenever we talk about right shares or bonus shares, it is a securities which are being issued to the existing members of the company. Right shares will be issued by fulfilling the provisions of section number 62 of Companies Act 2013. Whereas bonus shares will be issued by fulfilling the provisions of section number 63 of Companies Act 2013. However, if the company is a listed company, then along with Companies Act, they also need to fulfill the provisions of SEBI Act 1992. So whenever we talk about a public company, then yes, a public company can issue securities through three ways. Number one, public offer, or else by a private placement, or else by issuing right shares or bonus shares. Now let us talk about a private company. See, a private company is not allowed to issue securities through public offer. So private company has got only two ways. Through which a private company can issue securities. They can issue securities either through a private placement or else through right shares or bonus shares. If they are opting for a private placement, then yes, they need to fulfill the provisions of section number 42. If they are fulfilling the provisions of right shares or bonus shares, then they can fulfill the provisions of Companies Act 2013. So, any company, whether it is a public company or whether it is a private company, both the companies are allowed to issue securities. So yes, my dear friends, we have successfully revised the provisions towards section number 23 of Companies Act 2013. So let us move on ahead towards the next part of this topic, that is the definition of the word called as prospectus. Over here, whenever a company wants to go for a public offer, that company needs to first issue a prospectus. Yes, my dear friends, as it is rightly been said that prospectus is not an offer. In fact, it is an invitation to an offer. Prospectus is not an offer, it is an invitation to an offer. The company issues a prospectus, the investors will start giving an offer. Over here, sir, if the investors have given an offer, will that result into a binding contract between the company and the investors? The answer is no. Because through an offer, a binding contract does not comes into picture. So any kind of an application made by the investors is constituting an offer by the investors to the company. Only when the company gives an acceptance, then only a binding contract comes into existence between the company and the investor. The word prospectus is been defined under section number 2, clause 70 of Companies Act 2013. The word prospectus is been defined under section number 2, clause 70. Lawmaker says that prospectus will be in a form of a document. See, when I say prospectus will be in a form of a document, then one thing is for very much sure that it will be in a written form and it will be never ever be in an oral form. Sir, can prospectus over here be in an oral form? The answer is no. The answer is no. Prospectus must be always and always in a written form. The prospectus is any document, or it can be in a form of a notice or a circular or an advertisement, or any such document which is inviting offers from public at large. It is inviting offers from public at large. Why? So that the public at large can subscribe or purchase the securities of a body corporate. See, when I say body corporate, it includes a company. Body corporate includes a company. Lawmaker says prospectus is any document wherein a prospectus includes a red herring prospectus as well as a shelf prospectus. Red herring prospectus and a shelf prospectus are nothing but they are types of prospectus. I've already told you guys that prospectus must be in writing. Oral invitation to offer will not be considered as a prospectus. Let us move on ahead towards the next part of this chapter, that is section number 26, which deals with contents of prospectus. Section number 26, which deals with contents of prospectus. Over here, the lawmaker says that the prospectus of a company should be always and always dated. The prospectus must be always and always dated. See, in every prospectus you will come across a date, and that date must be assumed to be the date when the prospectus was being published. So in every prospectus you will come across a date, and that date is the date when the prospectus was being published. Before issuing the prospectus to public at large, the company must file a copy of prospectus with the ROC. So before issuing the prospectus to public at large, the copy of the prospectus must be filed with the ROC. Sir, we have filed a copy of the prospectus with the ROC. Now, within what time limit we need to issue the prospectus to public at large? The lawmaker over here says the company must issue the prospectus to public at large within 90 days of filing with ROC. Sir, what if we have not followed this provision, we have directly started issuing the securities even after 90 days, then the lawmaker says that it will be assumed that you had never issued a prospectus. So over here, every prospectus must be dated. It should be filed with ROC. Once it has been filed with ROC, it must be issued to public at large maximum within 90 days from filing with ROC. Over here, the next point deals with the main contents towards prospectus. See over here, this can be asked as a theory question by ICAI. Okay, what are the main contents of the prospectus? Then we need to write down the following 4 points, that is point number A, B, C and D. So these are the main contents of a prospectus. Over here, the lawmaker says that every prospectus issued by the company shall be dated and it should be signed by the directors as well as the promoters whose name is been mentioned inside the prospectus. You are the director of the company? Yes. Is your name mentioned inside the prospectus? Yes. Then yes, you must sign that prospectus. The prospectus shall be dated and prospectus shall be properly signed. Over here, inside the prospectus, the company needs to give information that is nothing but a financial information which has been specified by SEBI in consultation with central government. Which has been specified by SEBI in consultation with central government. Till the time SEBI has not consulted central government and any company is having a desire to bring a prospectus, then inside their prospectus the information should be related towards the financial information which is been specified under SEBI Act 1992, which has been specified under SEBI Act 1992. Over here, the company shall make a declaration about the compliance of the provisions of this act. A declaration will be given by the company stating that the provisions of this act are being duly followed by the company. Along with it, if the company was being made applicable with Securities Contracts Act 1956, SEBI Act 1992 and other such rules and regulations, then all such things were being duly followed by the company. Such kind of a declaration will also be given inside the prospectus of a company. However, the above provisions of A to D, that is point number A, B, C, D, are not applicable if any one of the given circumstance is being fulfilled. So these two will be acting as an exceptional case wherein the provision towards point number A, point number B, point number C and point number D will be not made applicable. Inside the prospectus there can be a statement made by experts. There can be a statement made by expert. Sir, what do you mean by experts? The lawmaker says the word expert is been defined under section number 2 clause 38. The word expert is been defined under section number 2 clause 38. The definition of the word expert is inclusive in nature. The definition is of inclusive in nature. The word expert includes an engineer, it includes a valuer, it includes a chartered accountant, it includes a company secretary, a cost accountant or any other person who has a power or authority to issue a certificate in pursuance of any law for the time being in force. So whether you are an engineer or whether you are a registered valuer or whether you are a chartered accountant or you are a company secretary or you are a cost accountant or any such other person who has got the power to issue a certificate in pursuance of any law for the time being in force, then yes, you are considered to be an expert. Whenever there is a statement given by the expert inside the prospectus, then the lawmaker says the expert should not be a person who is engaged or interested either in the formation of the company or into the promotion of the company or into the management of the company. Over here, the expert should always and always give its written consent. If the written consent is not been obtained, then sorry to say the statements given by the experts cannot be included inside the prospectus of a company. Over here, if the expert had given a consent but later on he had withdrawn his consent, then yes, the statements given by the expert should also be withdrawn from the prospectus. Over here, the lawmaker says if any of the provision is not been followed given under section number 26, if there is any kind of contravention, then yes, there will be a punishment. There will be a punishment upon the company as well as upon any such person who was knowingly a party to such issue of prospectus. Yes, my dear friends, there is a recent amendment inside the provision of section number 26. Over here, the lawmaker says that the company will be asked to pay a minimum fine of rupees 50,000, which can be extended up to rupees 3 lakhs. Similar way, any person who was knowingly a party to a default into such issue of prospectus will be asked to pay a minimum fine of rupees 50,000, which can extend up to 3 lakhs. However, that person was also been asked to go for an imprisonment, or there can be both the things, but now through an amendment it is been removed and there is only and only a penalty getting imposed. The provision towards the imprisonment is been omitted. The provision towards imprisonment is been omitted. So yes, my dear friends, we have successfully completed the revisionary part of section number 26 as well. Let us move on towards the next provision, that is section number 27 of Companies Act 2013. Section number 27 of Companies Act 2013 says about the variation in terms of contract or objects inside the prospectus. Yes, once the prospectus is been issued and the funds are been raised, now the company cannot change the objects which were being given inside the prospectus of a company. See, over here under section number 27, the lawmaker has clearly made a statement that once the funds are being raised through a given prospectus, the principles of doctrine of ultra vires will come into picture, but there will be mutatis mutandis, which means only with some necessary changes. The company has to strictly use the funds in accordance with the prospectus. For whatever reason the funds were being raised, only for that purpose the funds shall be utilized. Deviations means changes are required, then it has to be first of all pre-approved by the investors. If the investors are not giving their consent, which means they are called as dissenting shareholders, then such dissenting shareholders can be given a recall option. Such dissenting shareholders can be given a recall option. However, if the company says that we would like to use the money raised in buying or trading or selling of equity shares of any other listed companies, the lawmaker says, sorry, such things cannot be permitted. Such things cannot be permitted. See, whenever a company wants to change the objects given inside the prospectus, the company needs to pass a special resolution. For passing a special resolution, the company over here will require to pass it through a postal ballot and not through a general meeting. Over here, what is postal ballot? So we are going to revise it under section number 110 of Companies Act 2013. See, whenever a company is going to pass a resolution through a postal ballot, the company needs to first of all give a notice of such resolution to every shareholders. In fact, the notice will also be published in a newspaper, that is, one will be an English newspaper and another will be an vernacular newspaper. Those shareholders who are not giving their consent, I repeat, those shareholders who are not giving their consent are called as dissenting shareholders. Such dissenting shareholders can be given an exit offer. They can be given an exit offer. Over here, at which price such shareholders will be given an exit will be specified by SEBI. So yes, my dear friends, we have also successfully revised the provisions towards section number 27 of Companies Act 2013. So let us move on ahead towards the next part of this chapter, that is types of prospectus. Over here, we got to revise two things. Number one, red herring prospectus, which is given under section number 32 of Companies Act 2013, and we also need to revise shelf prospectus, which is given under section number 31 of Companies Act 2013. Let us first revise a shelf prospectus. See, a shelf prospectus is a prospectus which will help a company to issue securities to public at large through subsequent times. For example, once a company has issued a shelf prospectus, then the validity of that shelf prospectus is of completely 1 year. In that entire 1 year, whenever the company wants to go for the subsequent issue, the company does not require to file a new prospectus. In fact, with the help of the shelf prospectus, the company will be able to raise the funds. The company will raise the funds through that similar shelf prospectus, which is having a validity of completely 1 year. Whenever we talk about a shelf prospectus, then in that case, there are certain conditions which are required to be fulfilled. The lawmaker over here says that a shelf prospectus is a prospectus which has to be filed with the ROC. Yes, the copy of the shelf prospectus is required to be filed with the ROC. Over here, only such classes of companies which are being prescribed by SEBI can issue a shelf prospectus. Over here, the shelf prospectus can be filed by the company. The shelf prospectus can be filed by the company at the very first stage of the offer of securities. So for the very first time when the company goes for offering the securities, only at that time the shelf prospectus will be required to be filed. However, for the second or subsequent offer, the company is not required to bring any kind of prospectus. Sir, then how the investors will come to know that the company is in further need of money, and how the investors will come to know about the changes which has occurred from the previous issue to the current issue? The lawmaker here over says that the company will have to file a document called as information memorandum. The company will have to file a document called as information memorandum. Any kind of changes which occurs from the previous issue to the current issue, then all such changes will be communicated through a document called as information memorandum. Yes, information memorandum is required to be filed with the ROC. See, whether there is a change which is either on the financial part of the company or whether it is a change either on the non-financial part of the company, any kind of changes shall be filed inside information memorandum. Over here, the company needs to also intimate such changes to the applicants. If any applicant has given some kind of advance money to the company for the subsequent issues, then in that case, the changes which has occurred should also be intimated to such applicants. However, if the applicants wants to have refund of their money, then they can get their refunds, wherein the company shall refund those money within 15 days. The lawmaker here over says a shelf prospectus along with information memorandum is assumed to be the prospectus itself. It is assumed to be the prospectus itself. The next provision over here is a red herring prospectus which has been given under section number 32 of Companies Act 2013. See, whenever we talk about a red herring prospectus, the lawmaker here says that red herring prospectus is a prospectus which does not include some of the vital informations. Sir, which vital informations are been missing over here? So either the quantity of securities which are required to be issued, or else the price per security will be missing. So either the information towards the quantum or either the information towards the price per securities will be missing. The lawmaker here says that a red herring prospectus has been introduced just to facilitate a book building method. In fact, a red herring prospectus is a prospectus which will be issued prior to the issue of the main prospectus. Even a red herring prospectus is required to be filed with ROC. Any kind of changes which occurs from red herring prospectus up to the final prospectus, then such changes shall be highlighted as variations inside the main prospectus, over here, the lawmaker says all those details which were not been included inside the red herring prospectus, all such details shall be included inside the prospectus. The details relating towards the total capital raised, whether it was by way of a debt or whether it was by way of a share capital, the closing price of the securities, and any other such details which were not been included inside the red herring prospectus shall be filed with ROC and SEBI. So yes, my dear friends, we have successfully revised the provisions towards shelf prospectus, that was section number 31, and we have also revised red herring prospectus, that was section number 32. Let us move on ahead towards the next topic, that is about the remedies for misrepresentation inside the prospectus. Remedies for misrepresentation inside the prospectus. See, whenever a company issues a prospectus, the prospectus should have the details which should be a true details. All facts shall be revealed and none of the facts shall be concealed. However, if the prospectus turns out to be a misstated one, then in that case, the person who had subscribed the securities on the mercy of the prospectus, that is the allottee over here, will be having certain remedies against the company, and it will also be having certain remedies against the directors of the company, promoters of the company, as well as experts. What are the remedies an aggrieved party will enjoy over here against the company? The very first remedy is to cancel the contract. Whatever will be the contract between the investor who had subscribed the securities through a prospectus and the company, then such contract will be cancelled. In fact, the aggrieved party can apply to the court and ask the court to give an order to the company to strike off his name from the register of member. Over here, the aggrieved party may also claim something called as money back. He can also claim back his money. In fact, the aggrieved party can also demand damages from the company. See, whenever you want to enjoy these remedies against the company, then you must act within a reasonable period of time. Means over here you need to act before the proceedings of winding up has been commenced. If the proceedings of winding up have been commenced, then sorry to say, the creditors will be given a preference above the members of the company. Over here, such remedies are available only and only to those persons who have subscribed the shares. If you have purchased the shares from the open market and then the prospectus turns out to be misstated, then sorry to say, you don't have any remedies against the company, nor its directors, nor its promoters, nor its experts. So only when you have subscribed to the securities, you are acting as an allottee, then only you will be enjoying the rights against the company as well as the rights against the directors, promoters or experts. Let us understand that what are the rights the aggrieved party has got over here against the directors, promoters or experts. Over here, the aggrieved party enjoys two things. One is a criminal liability, another is a civil liability, and both of this point is been explained in depth in the next page. It has been explained in depth in the next page. Over here, the very first remedy they have got over here against the directors, promoters and experts, it is as per section number 34. It is as per section number 34. That is a criminal liability for misstatement inside the prospectus. A criminal liability for misstatement inside the prospectus. See, whenever section number 34 gets applicable, then there is something called as the persons are being proved with a guilty mind of fraud, and hence upon those person the provisions of section number 447 will also be made applicable. What is section number 447? So section number 447 deals with penalty for fraud. Section number 447 deals with penalty for fraud. Over here, if the value of the fraud is lesser than 10 lakh rupees or 1% of the turnover, whichever is lower. If the value of the fraud is lesser than the given amount, then in that case, the directors, promoters and experts could be asked to pay a penalty up to rupees 50 lakhs, or else they could be asked to go for an imprisonment up to 5 years, However, if the value of fraud is equal to or more than the given value, that is 10 lakhs or 1% of the turnover, whichever is less, then in that case, the minimum penalty the director, the promoter and the experts will be asked to pay will be the amount of fraud itself. If the amount of fraud is 100 crores, then the minimum penalty payable by them will be of 100 crores. The maximum penalty can go is up to 3 times the amount of fraud. Not only that much, they will also be asked to go for an imprisonment up to 6 months, which can also be gone for up to maximum 10 years. However, if public interest is been involved, then their imprisonment will be for minimum 3 years and maximum it will be for 10 years. The next provision over here is upon section number 35, which says about the civil liability, for misstatement inside the prospectus. Over here, whenever the company has issued a prospectus which turns out to be a misstated one, and if the investors have faced any kind of losses, then the following people will be liable to pay compensation for the loss. Sir, who are the people who will be liable to pay the compensation for loss? The lawmaker says every director of the company who was acting as a director when the prospectus was being issued. Along with him, every proposed director, along with him, every promoter, along with him, every other person who has authorized the issue of prospectus, and along with him, every such expert who was being named inside the prospectus. So these are the people who will be held responsible. In fact, these are the people who will be asked to pay compensation for the losses to the aggrieved party, which means the liability of such person will be without any limitation, which means their liability will be unlimited in nature. However, if any person wants to enjoy an exemption from the liability, any person want to enjoy the exemption from the liability, then in that case, any of the following 3 points should be satisfied. I repeat, any one of the following 3 points should be satisfied. If the director of the company says that the prospectus was been issued without his knowledge or without his consent, the director over here proves it, that yes, I am the director of the company, but see, my consent was not there inside the prospectus, then such directors will be exempted from the liability of section number 35. Or else if the director says that I had given a consent, but before issuing the prospectus, I had withdrawn my consent. I accepted that I had given my consent, but before issuing the prospectus, I had withdrawn my consent, then even those directors will be exempted from the liability of section number 35. Even those people who will be exempted includes number 1, the person who is a director, but the prospectus was being issued without his knowledge, or else the person was acting as a director, but he had withdrawn his consent before the issue of the prospectus. The third point is specifically for an expert. Over here, if the expert has given any kind of statements in the prospectus, and later on if that statement turns out to be untrue, then the expert will have to prove that the statements given by him He himself was believing it to be correct and fair. He himself was believing it to be correct and fair. In fact, his information, his statements were been completely been based upon a report which was being prepared by a person who was competent enough to prepare that report. However, if that report turns out to be untrue, then pretty obvious whatever are the statements given by the expert, even that turns out to be untrue. But the expert needs to prove that his intention was not to do any kind of fraudulent activities with the investors. So yes, my dear friends, we have successfully revised the provisions of section number 34 along with section number 35. The next provision we need to revise over here is the provision towards section number 36. Section number 36 says that if any person fraudulently induces another person to invest money by making some false statement, then the person who has done such inducement, the person who had given such false statement would also be liable as per the provisions of section number 447, that is penalty for fraud. The next provision is towards section number 37, which says about actions by affected persons. Actions by affected person. Over here, if you are an aggrieved party, then yes, you have got a right to file a case against the company. So whether you want to file a case against the company under section 34, or you want to file a case against the company under section 35 or against section number 36, then you all, that is the class of that group, the entire class of that group can file a common case against the company, which has been regarded as a class action suit, which has been regarded as a class action suit. Over here, the entire class or the entire group of people will have to just file one common case against the company. However, that entire class is not required to be present in the court. They can be represented through one common petitioner. See, what is the benefit of a class action suit? The benefit of a class action suit is that the several people were been acting as an aggrieved party. If those several people will separately file a case, then there will be multiple cases getting filed against the company, and all those several people need to be present at the court. However, instead of that, only one single case will be filed against the company, and in that case, the entire group of people is not required to be present in the court. They will be represented through one common petitioner. They will be represented through one common petitioner. So yes, my dear friends, we have successfully revised the provisions up to section number 37 of Companies Act 2013. So let us move on towards the next part of this topic, that is allotment of securities. See over here, my dear friends, you, that is the investors, had given an application to the company. How come did you give an application? When the company had given an invitation to offer. Now if the company has accepted your application, then the company will allot you the securities. Yes, it is on allotment when the securities comes into existence. It is on allotment when the securities comes into existence. Allotment of securities will be done by the board of directors of the company. Whenever the company allots securities, there are 5 general rules which are required to be followed. There are 5 general rules which are required to be followed by the company for allotment of securities. The very first rule says that the allotment should be made by proper authority. Sir, who is the proper authority over here? The lawmaker says it is the board of directors of the company, or else the committee authorized by the board of directors to allot securities. If any other person allots the security, then such allotment will be considered as invalid. Whenever the company allots the securities must be allotted within a reasonable period of time. Over here, if the company is unusually taking some long period of time just to allot the securities, then in that case, the applicant, that is the investor, may refuse to take the securities. Whenever the company is going to allot the security, then such allotment should be absolute and unconditional, which means the company should not make any terms and conditions while allotting the securities. Yes, the company must communicate about the allotment. The company must communicate about the allotment of securities, for which the company will send a letter of allotment to its investors. Over here, if the company wants, then the company may pay a commission to any person who is helping the company just to get the securities subscribed, Over here, there are few statutory provisions related towards allotment of securities. The very first statutory provision, it is towards application money. Yes, the company must receive something called as the minimum application money at the time of receiving the money from the investors. So what is the minimum application money required to be received? The lawmaker says it must not be less than 5% of the nominal value, that is the face value. Whatever is the money the company has received, that money the company will have to deposit in a different account in a scheduled bank called as escrow account. The money which has been deposited inside that account can be utilized only for the following two purposes. That is, number one, for adjustment against the allotment of securities, or else for repayment of money, Sir, why will the company go for repayment? The repayment will come into picture only and only when the company is unable to allot the securities. Over here, the second statutory provision is towards the minimum subscription. What is the minimum subscription required? The lawmaker says it will be prescribed inside the prospectus of the company. If that minimum subscription is not been received within 30 days from the date of issue of the prospectus, then in that case the company shall refund the money without any interest within 15 days from the date of closure of the issue. The day when the issue got closed, from that day within 15 days, if the money has been refunded, then it will be refunded without any interest. But if there is a delay in refunding the money, if the company is going to refund the money beyond 15 days, then all those directors who were officers in default will be asked to repay the money with interest at the rate of 15% per annum. The third statutory provision is towards the listing permission. The company who is going for a public offer shall get a listing permission from a recognized stock exchange. So from how many stock exchange we need to get the listing permission? The lawmaker says you need to get the listing permission from all the stock exchanges wherever the company has applied for listing its securities. If the company has applied for 10 stock exchanges and the company has received the approval from 8 of them, sorry to say, the issue gets cancelled and the money has to get refunded. But if the company had made an application to 10 stock exchanges and if all those 10 stock exchanges are giving a listing permission, then yes, the company has fulfilled the provision about the listing permissions. Over here, if any allotment is being made without the permission of the stock exchange, then sorry to say, it will be considered as void in nature. The last point says that if any condition is being waived off, then it will be considered again as void in nature. So whatever are the conditions which are required to be followed, all those conditions the company has to mandatorily get followed. The next provision is about the return of allotment. Yes, my dear friends, the day when the company allots the securities to its investors, from that day within 30 days, the company needs to send a report to the ROC under a form called as PAS3, wherein inside that return of allotment, the list of allottees has to be mentioned along with their names, addresses, occupation and number of securities which are being allotted to each of the allottees. If the company is going to allot securities for a consideration which is other than cash, then yes, the company needs to file a report which has been prepared by a registered valuer with the ROC under a form called as PS3. Over here, if the company is going for a bonus shares, then even those details is required to be filed with ROC. If there is any kind of default in filing a return of allotment, then in that case, the company as well as the officer who is in default will be asked to pay a penalty rupees 1000 for each day for the period for which there was a default, or 1 lakh rupees whichever is less, However, if any other provisions are being contravened, then in that case the company as well as every officer in default will be asked to pay a penalty. The company will be asked to pay a penalty of minimum 5 lakhs, maximum 50 lakhs. Officer in default will be asked to pay a minimum penalty of 50,000 rupees up to 3 lakhs. However, the provisions towards imprisonment is been omitted. The provision towards imprisonment is been omitted through an amendment which has been there inside our November 21 RTP. November 21 RTP. The last part of this chapter, deals with section number 42, that is a private placement. See, whether you are a public company or whether you are a private company, both the companies are allowed to issue securities through private placement, for which the company needs to first take the approval from their existing shareholders by asking them to pass a special resolution. For passing this special resolution, the company requires to call a general meeting. For calling a general meeting, the company will be sending a notice to its members. Along with the notice, explanatory statements should also get attached. The lawmaker over here says a company can give a private placement offers only to a selected group of people, and those selected group of people will be now onwards referred as identified person. They will be identified by the board of directors. In one financial year, the company can give a private placement offers not exceeding to 50 people or any such higher number as may be prescribed, and the prescribed limit is given under Company Rules 2014, which is 200. So in practical life, we also take the limit as 200. However, in this limit, if any kind of private placement offer letters are given to a QIB, that is a qualified institutional buyer, that is a financial institution or a bank, or else any private placement offer letters are being given to the employees of the company under an ESOP plan, that is employee stock option plan, then such offer letters are to be excluded. Over here, the lawmaker says that in one financial year, the company can issue multiple securities, wherein for per security, the limit is of 50 or any such higher number which is being prescribed, and the higher number prescribed is 200. Over here, the company will have to first prepare a private placement offer letter, and such offer letter will be distributed to the identified person. The identified person cannot renounce their rights. They cannot give up their rights. They can either accept it or they can either reject it. However, if the company has given an offer letter to more than the prescribed number of persons, then it will be considered as a public offer, and the provisions of section number 23 to section number 41 will be made applicable. The identified persons who are willing to subscribe the securities issued through a private placement, such identified person can either make the payment through a check or demand draft or any other banking channels, but they should never ever make the payment through cash. Whatever is the money the company has got it through a private placement, such money the company cannot utilize until and unless allotment is made and the return of allotment has been filed with the ROC. If the company is going for issuing shares through private placement, then up till the time till which the procedure towards shares is not been completed, till that time a no fresh offer for debentures can be started. Over here, it is the duty of the company to allot the securities within 60 days from the date of receipt of the application money. If the company fails to allot securities within 60 days, then the company shall refund the money within 15 days from the expiry of 60th day. However, if the company even fails to repay the money, then in that case, the company shall repay that money along with interest at the rate of 12% per annum, and it will be started from the expiry of the 60th day. Over here, whatever is the money the company has received through a private placement, such money cannot be utilized for any other purpose. However, it can be utilized only for following two purposes, that is either for adjustment against allotment or for repayment of money when the company is unable to allot securities. Over here, the company will not be going for any kind of public advertisements or any kind of marketing activities. If the provisions are not being followed, then the company will be asked to pay a penalty which will be equivalent to the amount raised through private placement or 2 crores, whichever is lower. In fact, the company will also have to refund the money with interest within 30 days from the date when the order was being imposed. The last rule over here says the company needs to file a return of allotment in case of private placement within 15 days. If the return of allotment is not been filed, then yes, there will be a penalty which will be of rupees 1000 per day, during which the default continues, but the maximum penalty which the lawmaker can get is maximum 25 lakh rupees. It is maximum 25 lakh rupees. So yes, my dear friends, we have successfully completed the entire revisionary part of chapter number 3 of Companies Act 2013, which was dealing with prospectus and allotment of securities. So that's all. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Study well. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.